Hello everyone, how you doing? Welcome to another PS Book Reviews. Today we're gonna do another series on the complete fiction of Lovecraft that I've been reading throughout the last couple of years, I guess. I read a couple more stories recently, namely The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, The Color Out of Space, The Descent, The Very Old Folk, and History of the Necronomicon. Three of these are very, very short. The Case of Charles Dexter Ward was particularly long, but it was also very interesting as well. It tells the story of this gentleman that is looking for his hereditary lineage, trying to unravel where he came from, and he starts noticing some weird things on one of his ancestors. And since he's an historian of some sort, he digs deeper into it and he keeps unraveling more and more sinister things. The story is quite lengthy. It's very well made. It has some cliches of Lovecraft and horror in general, but it's very well written, and you get into the whole thing and the mystery of the whole aspect of finding his genealogy. Finally, he manages to find it after a while, and there's some weird events surrounding all of that, and I don't want to spoil the rest of the story, so I'm going to leave it at that. It does connect with the rest of the Cthulhu mythos, which is very interesting to read. And yeah, highly recommend The Case of Charles Dexter Ward. The first chapter was weird. I couldn't get into it. It was just like very abstract. But after that, it really becomes more action focused or description focused. And I got a lot more into it. And it was one of the best stories on the complete fiction. Not the best one, but one of the pretty good ones. And also pretty lengthy, which is a bit uncommon for Lovecraft. The other story that I read, and I can also recommend, is The Color Out of Space. I had already seen this one in comic book format on the comic that I have on Lovecraft. This was one of the stories covered there. Stories of a region outside of Arkham, which is a fictional place in Lovecraft mythos. And there was this farm where a weird meteor came crashing from the cosmos, and the meteor was very weird, and people analyzed it and had some very strange properties, and it seemed to be starting mysteriously sucking the life out of things in the neighborhood in a very terrifying and descriptive way. Always told in like the third person as the visitors that came to the thing and just knew of some details, which increases the horror and the terror of the thing in some aspect. The story is pretty good, pretty grim. Also sort of connects to the Cthulhu mythos. If you have read some of the other stories, you can see the relationships between them, and things coming from out of space that have some cosmic terror, as it's mentioned. Did like the story. I think it was very good. I kind of like the comic adaptation of it, but I think in written form is also pretty good as well. So yeah, worth checking out for sure. It's not that long as well. It's easy to get into and check out. Then we had The Descendant, which was rather short and rather enigmatic. I didn't quite understand it completely. From what I understand, it relates to the origins of the Necronomicon, and Necronomicon is related to the Cthulhu mythos as well, and Yog-Sothoth myth as well. So it's part of the whole Lovecraftian universe, and it's sort of like it hints at the fact that in ancient Rome there were already some practices following these mythos. And from the title, I could understand that this relates to the descendant of that lineage, having some flashbacks of some sort related to that, but it's not very explicit what the relation is between the title and the main protagonist and the Necronomicon itself. It's a bit of a blur, but it's also like 2-3 pages long. So I wonder if this was used as some sort of like promo or filler of some sort. It doesn't feel like a complete story. It just feels like, let's write something remotely in the universe that we've been creating. The very old folk also had a similar relation to that. Also goes back to the Roman age, and this one had a lot of research put into it. They used like all ancient Roman terminology to describe, and it's like a dream that happened for one of a character that is dreaming as being part of a Roman character, and this whole dreams being bridges to some weird occurrences is also part of the Cthulhu Yog-Sothoth universe of Lovecraft. So it connects very well to the other stuff, and it goes back to ancient Rome and these things already being practiced in ancient Rome. Not just Rome, but also some other key reference points of Lovecraftian history. Atlantis is also mentioned in other stories and is mentioned again in this one. Some lost city in the desert is also mentioned before, and it's also mentioned here again. So it connects some of these dots and creates a bit of an extra lore behind the whole universe that it has. A very short story as well, but I think it was pretty good read. Better than The Descendant, at least for me. Then we had the history of the Necronomicon, which I thought, oh, this is going to be very interesting. I'm going to learn all about the Necronomicon. Very succinct, very straightforward. It just explains who wrote it originally and the different versions that existed of it, different translations. It doesn't really explain what's inside it and why people go crazy because of it and why it was shunned. But it was like banned from different places, banned by the Catholic Church after they saw the Latin translation, I believe. Banned later on from some other place as well. It adds to the terror and horror mythos behind Necronomicon itself. So it's a nice filler to understand the lore behind it as well. Nice reference point, but it feels like a filler or something like just a one-page thing that you threw to like a magazine or something. Very curious where this was published originally. Interesting read, but not really very, consequential. Didn't really bring that much, but it was interesting. I'm divided. It got some insight into the Necronomicon thing and the whole lore in particular, but at the same time it also introduced more questions than it delivered answers, so I don't know. Anyways, the highlight of these 5 ones was definitely the case of Charles Dexter Ward, in my humble opinion. The Color of Outer Space is pretty good as well. The other ones were pretty much fillers, but interesting if you're especially curious about the Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth myth and the Necronomicon in particular, which seems to have a strong part in this whole mythos as well as like a vehicle to access dreams and access the invocations of these cosmic entities of some sort. Necronomicon was also mentioned on the Charles Dexter Ward story as well as one of the books. At some point they got this book and it was a key to help unravel some of the pseudoscience that is involved in the whole thing. I don't want to spoil the story, that's why I'm being purposely vague. Anyways, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed this series as I continue to explore the Lovecraft complete fiction of. Still have quite a bit to go. I'm like 2/3 in at this point. So let's see how things evolve. But yeah, been very interesting read so far, and I do recommend people to check out if they're interested in Lovecraft. It's definitely better to check out the original works than to just read about it. So yeah, see you next video. Bye bye everyone. Take care.